Do you work with data and need an easy way to clean and prepare your data that doesn't involve advanced Excel knowledge or technical programming skills? Well, let me introduce you to Rev, a tool built for you that enables you to easily and quickly clean your dirty data. Let's sign in, and I'll show you how. Welcome to Rev. Here you'll see our homepage. And if you're new to Rev, we want to make it very easy for you to learn how to use the tool. At the top, we have some user-guided journeys. And if you click on Try It, this will take you through step-by-step how to perform certain features and functions in Rev. It'll give you a quick idea of what to do and how to do it. On the right-hand side, you can also go ahead and watch some of our tutorial videos. A quick video will teach you very quickly how you can manipulate data, how to export and share projects, how to refresh data, and many more. In the middle, here's where I have my projects that I'm working on, and I can click on any of these to load the project. But you know what? Let's go ahead and set up a new project. Let me title my project Demo of Rev. And then I'm going to go ahead and select my project goal. So say I'm a marketing analyst and I'm working on cleaning up a list because my boss wants me to then use this list to run an email campaign as well as a direct mail campaign. And I also need to combine this list of data with other data, such as spending data, to find out who my top 20% of spenders are. That way I can segment the customer based on behavior of spending and run specific campaigns based on spending habits. So to start with, because I need to clean up my list, let me select my project goal. I'm cleaning up my contact list. I'll hit continue. And right away, Rev will ask me to import my data. Now, Rev is pretty cool because I can import data from various sources. I can simply upload or import a file, CSV or Excel file. I just click on this. I would select my file. Then I would go ahead and import that. Say that I have access to Salesforce or Marketo data. I can simply sign into my Salesforce or Marketo account and then pull in data that way. And right now we offer connection to these two applications, but we're continually building out more applications. So you'll see more show up here and this list will continue to grow. Let's say though that I also have data that sits in a database that I have access to. Or maybe the data sits in a database that I don't have access to, but IT can grant me that access. Well, I can pull in data that way through our database as well as shared connections. Let me show you how that works. To access the database and shared connections, all I need to do is type in my username and password using my Informatica Cloud account. Using Informatica Cloud connectivity, I can connect to over 120 plus sources. So let me go ahead and sign in. Let's say that I have data in a database that I have direct access to, and I want to bring in that data. So once I've signed in, and Rev is going to go ahead and load all my connections in, I can simply go in here, choose the database that I want to connect to. If there's not one there, not a problem. I can always go ahead and set one up using my information. In this case, I already have what I want, so I will hit continue. Rev will then load the tables in that database. And once it's done that, I just select the information I want, click import, and then Rev will go ahead and load that data into the project. Let's say that I also need to bring in data from another database that I do not have access to, but IT has access to it. Well, using Rev's shared connections feature, I can go ahead and access the data in that database through an IT provisioned shared connection. So I simply go in here to import. My shared connections are already selected. I want to bring in data from this database, which IT has provisioned a shared connection for me so I can access that. Click on that, hit continue. It'll load in all the tables from that database. And I want to bring in store survey results. Hit import, and Rev will load in the data for me. I also need to bring in data that is spending data for my customers. Well, I have that file in a spreadsheet sitting on my laptop, so let me go ahead and import that file. Just click on Import, File selected for me, choose File, select that one, Open, Import, and Rev will quickly and easily load that information, that data set, into the project for me. Now there's one more way that we can also bring in data into Rev. So let me go ahead and show you how that's done. Let me go back to the beginning. Using Informatica Cloud, my IT department can provision data directly into Rev, meaning they could design a mapping and set Rev as the target and have the cloud push data directly into Rev. Where that would go, it would simply go into a shared folder I have set up, or any folder that you decide to set up. I've titled mine Provision Data, and this is data that was pushed directly into Rev as a target. But let me go back to the project, since I already have all the data that I need. Okay, back to my project. Once all the data is imported, Rev will quickly profile the data to help me better understand what I'm working with. In the gray box, Rev gives a quick hit high level of the data I have, as well as identifies potential issues that I might not have caught on my own. For example, Rev's telling me, hey, you have some blank columns or you have some duplicate email values found. You may want to look at that if you're trying to do analysis or visualization and you're trying to, clean and prepare this data set. These are things that you might want to take care of, which is awesome because some of these things I may have overlooked or I may have even forgotten or not even thought of to look at. So Rev helps me out that way. In the green box, Rev will also quickly profile the different data types in the data set. So if I'm looking to quickly profile and work with the data, and I just want to identify, the data types or the columns that have numbers in them, a quick selection of that, and Rev will filter down to those columns. And in addition, in the blue box, Rev will make automatic data suggestions that will allow me in one simple click to quickly clean up my data set instead of having to manually find all the blank columns and delete them or search for the one column with one value. All I need to do is hover over the suggestion. As you'll notice, Rev will identify the suggestion and change the color of that column. And I can simply click on that. It will detect and delete all 6 blank columns in one simple click. And then furthermore, there's one column with one value. Hovering over that, I can see that that column happens to be this column right here, collector ID. Well, that information really isn't valuable to me since there's only one person collecting all the information, so I can quickly delete that in one simple click. Before I go any further, let me give you another example. Say all this data I need to put into an analysis visualization tool such as Tableau, and I need it to be a certain way in Tableau in order to make it easy for me to understand the data that I'm working with and also garner great insight that's easy to understand, easy to read, easy to get. Right now, the data as it sits is dirty. And if I were to put this into Tableau as it sits right now, here's how it would look. Looking at this, I can quickly see, okay, that's not going to work for my analysis. I have an opt-in column that has various values. They're not standardized, and that could definitely, one, it doesn't look good, and two, it could make it harder if I were to do more further, deeper analysis. Second, looks like, I took a survey of customers, store survey results, that's the file that we're working with, and they answered to various questions. This isn't that intuitively easy for me to understand. I mean, I can get what it's telling me, but it's just not easy to view. There has to be a better way to reshape the data so when I put it into Tableau, it's easier to read. Lastly, looks like I took an answer, and this answer had 0 for no, 1 for yes, but it took the answer as 1 versus splitting it. Well, this might be an issue, again, if I'm doing further analysis and I want to split off the text values versus the numeric values and run a visualization on that. So you can clearly see that putting dirty data into Tableau doesn't help. And that's why I need to quickly clean and prepare it. So let's go back to Rev. All right, now to the good stuff. So let's start cleaning this data. Right off the bat, looking at my data set, here's one of those columns that had multiple answers in one column. So I need to split this information. Well, I could do this in Excel, but it would take me a while, especially if I'm not technically savvy. I'd have to know how to write formulas to split these values apart. And that might not be so easy for me to know, especially if I'm not advanced. Well, Rev makes it very easy. One click will do the splitting for you. Down below in the suggestions box, if I hover over this split by suggestion, before I do anything to finalize the process, Rev will preview my action. So now you can see that Rev's already split based on the colon, and it has numeric values in one column, text values in the other column. Well, that's exactly what I want. So in a matter of seconds and one simple click, I've gone ahead and split those values. I didn't have to sit here and write formula or code to do that for me. I do know that in this data set, I also have another column of the same nature. So I can go ahead and split this as well. But let's say, for example purposes, that colon happened to be a period or a comma or a dash. It was something different. Not an issue. I can go in here, select split. I want Rev to split into two columns. I want Rev to split on the characters. And in this case, the character happened to be a colon. But if it were a comma, if it were a dash, maybe it was a certain set of characters, whatever it may be, I just tell Rev, hey, split on that. Rev understands it, click done, and again, in a couple clicks, matter of seconds, I've easily split that information. Now that I've split that information, again, remember, I am cleaning up this list because I want to run an email as well as direct mail campaign off of it. So now I need to validate some information. I do know in this data set I have zip codes. If I'm going to mail out pieces of advertising material or whatever it is I'm sending to these store customers, I want to make sure that the mailing is actually getting there and that I'm not wasting money mailing to addresses that don't exist or zip codes that aren't even valid for that matter. Well, in Rev, I can click on this column. Down below, I can validate as a US zip code. And in one click, what Rev will do is it will check all these zip codes. Not only will it make sure that the zip code is 5 digits as a US standard zip code should be, but it also checks against a source that has legit zip codes to make sure that the zip codes in this file actually match up to those legit zip codes and they are real. Down below, I can see, okay, Rev's already detected for me that I have a few invalid zip codes. Let me see what those are. Click on invalid. Rev will then filter down to show me what those invalid zip codes are. Ah, only 4 digits. I know this needs to be 5. And I happen to know that 9862 should be 98620. I can go down here, double click on the value, add in the 0, hit return very quickly. Rev will then re-profile all the information. It'll change all those zip codes, re-profile information, go back here, and now it shows 0 invalid zip codes. So I've quickly changed that and corrected it and done validation all in a matter of seconds, and again, a few simple clicks, versus maybe having to send out to a third-party source to validate, and then that takes some time for them to get back to me, and then I'm sitting here saying, I really need to get this project done. I can't be waiting on someone else. Here's another zip code column. Let me go ahead and repeat the same process and just get that one cleaned up as well. Okay, on to the next part. Now I need to deal with the email addresses. So let me go back. Here's the email addresses. Now you may have already noticed, but when I click on a column, Rev changes the information down below. So when I first loaded the dataset in, Rev profiled all the information on a sheet overview. When I click on a specific column, Rev profiles the information on a column overview. So I can see the specific data type in that column, how many unique values there are. If this is a column that I know needs to have 100% unique values, I can quickly detect, oh, okay, doesn't look like there's 100% unique values. I must have some duplicates based on the percentage. Rev will also give me the value frequencies. So if I was looking for a specific email address and I knew what that was, I could go in here, type it in, and look for that email address. Furthermore, I can quickly select values that I want to filter down to just see those values. And within the values themselves, I can change them. Maybe I know that hjordan@linkstorm.com should really be h-jordan@linkstorm.com. I can go in there and very quickly and easily change that information. Now, speaking of duplicates, let's go ahead and search for those. So if I right-click on this and then go down to Resolve Duplicates, right away, Rev will check and it'll identify duplicates on two fronts. The first front is perfect duplicates. So Rev checks all the data. It doesn't sample a certain set of data. It looks at each value in each cell of the entire data set to get an understanding of the data. And then with the duplicates, perfect duplicates, it looks at it at a row level. So any rows that match across the board identifies as a duplicate. I want to delete those. Rev will preview the duplicates for me just to make sure, I'm cool with deleting these records. Yep, they all look like duplicates. So I'll say delete perfect duplicates. Done. Now what Rev's doing is it's also looking for partial duplicates. And this is important because maybe you might have records where in one record set, someone typed in their information slightly different than in another record set, but they should be treated as the same record. They should be treated as one person. Well, it's not going to match on a row level, but it might match on a partial level. Maybe their names are the same, but there's certain information like maybe their address is slightly different, or maybe their zip code is slightly different. Whatever it may be, Rev can detect partial duplicates, thereby making it easier on you so you don't have to manually go and search through the data set to find those records. And you don't have to sit here and pull out your hair to say, oh, I'm looking at so much numbers and letters, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. How am I going to ever find this duplicate? Needle in a haystack. Think of it that way. Well, Rev makes it very easy. Right away, it's detected one partial duplicate. So let me go and review this. It's saying, hey, this record for the most part looks the same, but first name and last name are different. Do you want to treat this as a separate record, or would you like to consider this a duplicate? Depending on what route I go and what decision I make, I can go ahead and delete the not perfect, but partial duplicate. I can go ahead and delete that. Maybe it just needs to be fixed. I can go ahead and do that. I can also merge the records together. If I fix it, I can go in here, click on whatever cell I want to fix the information. In this case, I want to delete it. So I'll go here. I want to delete that record because that one looks wrong to me based on the way the last name is presented. Select delete. Done. Rev will then go ahead and look through all the information, make sure everything looks good. Perfect partials. They're all good to go. Hit exit. And there we go. No more duplicates. All right. Last but not least, for this data set, I need to reshape the information. Now remember in Tableau, when we looked at the survey question results and they looked kind of not easily put together and they just were somewhat hard to understand how the data appeared? That's probably because I have the questions in each separate row. This would be better for Tableau's purposes if I had one column with all the questions and another column after that with all the answers. Well, to do that, it's simple. I just need to unpivot the data. But it's not as simple to do it, let's say, if you're in Excel. You'd either have to use a plugin or you'd be doing a lot of manual formula writing to move the data and reshape it the way you'd like. That just takes time, especially if you're not very savvy in using Excel. Well, lucky for you, that's why we created Rev, to make complex processes like that very, very, very easy to do in just 1 or 2 clicks. All I need to do is go up here, and select unpivot. Rev will then identify all the columns that look like unpivotable columns. I can go ahead and view those. These happen to be all the question columns. That's exactly what I want, except for respondent ID. That's an identifier to me, so I don't want to unpivot that. No worries. Click change. Simply take out that column, select done. And before I unpivot it, again, Rev's previewing what it's going to do before I do it. Select unpivot. Rev will then unpivot all the information just the way I want it. Let me go in here and change that. And there we go. It's been unpivoted very easily for me. Cool. So now let's go to the master customer analytics file. This is the file that has my customer spending information in it. Again, right off the bat, here's that opt-in column with the various values. I need to standardize these values. Not a problem. Down here below, as I showed you before, you can change values on the fly, on the spot, very quickly and easily. True, let's say I want that to be Y for yes. I'll hit enter. Rev will identify and change all those values, and it will also recalculate all the information and add in all the Ys. False, I want that to be N for no. F, I want to change that to N for no. Let's say though, maybe I don't want to change them one by one, but I just want to do a mass detect and replace. I can easily do that as well. Up here, I just go to our categorize feature. False will make N for no. F will make N for no. I can click done, and then Rev will find all those values and quickly change them for me. All right, moving on. Here I have a column called lifetime spend. Let's say in my segmentation analysis, I need to figure out what the range is, what the lowest value is to the highest value is. Within that value, then I need to segment out based on who my top 20% of spenders are, who my next 20%, who are my bottom 20%. I've done this before, and you can do it in Excel, but it's not a quick, easy thing. First, you have to figure out the range, then you have to do some calculations, and then you may have to do some counts to then break up these customers in their proper buckets. Well, Rev, all I did was click on the column, and automatically, right away, I already see what my lowest value is, what my highest value is, and what's my range, what my average is, as well as my standard deviation. Furthermore, Rev's already broken down into the buckets I need. So if I want to quickly identify who my top 20% of spenders are, all I need to do is go over here, click on top 20%. Rev will then filter down to only those records. So if I was to just run analysis on this and I wanted to only export this information, as you just saw in a matter of seconds, I have that information. I don't have to sit here and write formula to figure that out. So I've cleaned up this data set. Mainly that was the only thing wrong with it. So now I want to combine the data sets together so I have one data set that I can then load into Tableau for analysis. So let's go do that. Okay, so when I want to combine or blend data together, I want to do it very easily and quickly. I don't like spending time in Excel to write VLOOKUP formulas and then, God forbid, I change a column or I move a column over, then it messes up my formula and then things just go whack. I need an easy way to quickly bring in data, combine, blend data, perform different types of joins that I'm looking to perform, and have it just done very fast. Well, Rev can do that all for me. So let me show you how. There's two ways that we can bring in, combine, blend data. The first way is what we call a lookup. So let's say in this master customer analytics file, if I were just to work off this data set, I have information here on spending behavior, but you know what? It would be really nice if I also had the customer's first name and last name, right? Well, I have that information in the store survey results file. So let's say I just want to bring in that information into this file. Again, I could perform a VLOOKUP, I could write a VLOOKUP to do that, but why do that when I have Rev? And it makes it very easy for me. So I want to bring in information from the store survey results. Right off the bat, Rev detects the key that I should join information on, or the key that I should use to look up information on. So rather than having to manually search for the column of data or the key that I think has the highest amount of overlap between both data sets, Rev has already detected that for me, and it's saying, hey, email address between both data sets has the highest amount of overlap. It'll give you the highest amount of match on records. You should use this key. Now, if I wanted to select my own key, I could easily do so, but in this case, I'm going to stick with what Rev recommended to me. As I mentioned, I just want to bring in first name and last name from the other data set. So if I click on first name, there you go. As you can see, Rev's bringing it in as I'm doing it in real time. Last name, bring that in. I can bring in other information, but those are the only two I want. And then when I click done, Rev will finalize this and it'll add in those two columns into the sheet. Okay, what if I want to combine or blend data sets together, right? I want to bring both data sets into one. Well, I can simply do that with Rev. As I showed you with the lookup formula, instead of writing VLOOKUPs in Rev, a couple of clicks, and I can perform a full outer join, left join, right join, these complex joins. All I got to do is tell Rev, hey, I want to do this, point click, done. So let me show you how that's done. So I'm going to go back to bring the sheet back to its original state after I standardize the values. And I want to combine this sheet with my unpivoted data set. Select that, hit OK. As shown before, Rev will detect the join key to match on. In this case, it's email address, highest amount of overlap. You can see right off the bat in the middle, we have the email address in the green column. There's data from one data set in the blue over here, and data from the other data set in the light orange over here. Now, based on the type of join I want to perform, rather than writing VLOOKUP formulas to do that, I just have to go in here and check or uncheck boxes. So if I want rows that match both, rows that match between both data sets, just need to select that. Maybe I want to see rows that only appear in one data set as well as rows that only appear in the other data set. So ones that don't match between each other. I can select these two, and Rev will show me that information. Maybe I want to perform a join, a combination of joins. So I want rows that match both as well as rows that only appear in the master customer analytics file. So let me deselect that. I'll select that. And then there we go. Rows that match both as well as rows only in the master customer analytics file. So as mentioned, in a few simple clicks, Rev's helped me perform these complex joins very quickly and very easily. I just want the rows that match both, so let me select that, and I'll hit combine, and Rev will load a new sheet for me with the combined data in it. Okay, so I've clicked back on the master customer analytics file, and here's why. I want to show you something else that's cool about Rev. So let's say that I'm working on this project, I'm working with this data set, I get it cleaned the way I wanted to get cleaned, and next week my boss comes back and he's like, hey, love the work you did with that project. I have more data from another store or more data from other customers, and I need you to compare last week's data with this week's data and tell me what changed. Ooh, this is not an easy thing to do if you've ever done it. A lot of times it's a lot of manual comparison, and at the same time, for me, sometimes it was looking back and forth between different Excel files. Well, in Rev, we made it very easy to detect the changes, but not only detect the changes, but also to refresh your data set, your old data set with new data. Thereby, you don't have to remember what you did last time to get your data set cleaned and prepared. Rev, through our recipe, tracks all those steps. So all you simply need to do is load in the new data, refresh it. Rev will then perform all these steps and get the data to the point where you like it, the way you had it last week. And then it'll even, go a step further to tell you what changed. So let me show you how that's done. Here's the recipe, tracks all the steps I took in this data set to clean it and prepare it. I want to bring in new data, so I'm going to click on refresh. This new data I have in a file, so let me select that file. I'll load it, and then I'll hit refresh from file. So Rev's going to go ahead and perform all those steps in the recipe with the new data. Once that's done loading, then I can go back to Rev and ask Rev to say, hey, show me what changed between the old data set and this week's new data. All I need to do is go back here, click on Highlight Changes, very quickly, very easily, and more importantly, without any manual comparison, Rev will find that information for me. I don't care about deleted rows, or actually I do care about deleted rows, so let me show those. What I don't care about are unchanged rows, so let me hide those. And right off the bat, last week it looks like H. Reyes, lifetime spend 9666. This week, 10,000. Awesome. So he's spending more money. This may be important for me to know because maybe it tells me, okay, he's an active customer. He's someone that I should heavily target. You know, going forth. Jay Baratheon, 158. Now he's up to 300. Cool. I should probably target him based on the information that changed from last week to this week. Very quickly, very easily, I've identified that information, and now I can go to my boss and say, hey, we need to target these people right away. Let's get on it. I didn't have to sit here and take hours to figure this all out. Click Done, and I can move on. Okay, so back to my combination sheet. Now I have the data cleaned and prepared the way I want it. And so going back to my example with Tableau, let's say I want to put this data into Tableau to then analyze and visualize now that it's clean. Well, what I can simply do is go up here and export the data. If I want to send a copy to my boss, I can send him a copy as a CSV file, export it that way, or I can just enter in his email and share the project with him directly through Rev. In this case, I want to export it as a Tableau data extract. That way I can easily and quickly load it into Tableau and start performing my analysis and visualization. So let me click on that. Rev will then create the TDE file for me. And while it's doing that, once it's done, I can click here to download. So I'll download the TDE. I already have this workbook prepared with the clean data, so let me bring that up. And as you can see right off the bat, this looks so much better than the old workbook I had with the dirty data. Right off the bat, you can see that the opt-in column has standardized values, so much more cleaner. Remember that column where I had both a text and a numeric answer for the question? Well, in this case, I just wanted the text answer. Easier to read, so much easier to read. Remember those questions that we had for the survey? If you forgot, let me show you how it looked like in the old workbook. You know, just not intuitively easy to understand. Well, once I reshaped the data in Rev and loaded it into Tableau, now it looks a lot better. And to me, this is a lot easier to understand. You have the data there and the corresponding data. So basically, clean, prepared data looks so much more better in Tableau, and it's so much more easier to understand. And I have Rev to thank you for quickly and easily cleaning that data in just a matter of seconds and minutes versus hours.